Hi, everyone. I'm just going to go over what AP style is and why we use it. Okay, so what is it? It's a certain style that journalists and all folks in the communications profession use. And in terms of why, I want you to look at the comic strip. I mean, not the comic strip, the two little memes, the yellow memes. Please just read them on your own and take a minute to think about what they're saying. Okay, so the first one says grammar is important. For instance, commas save lives. It's the difference between let's eat grandpa versus let's eat grandpa, right? You don't want to eat your grandpa, okay? So you want to make sure that you have that little punctuation mark. One punctuation mark can make all the difference in a sentence. Here's grammar. The difference between knowing your shit and knowing you are shit. Okay, so that's that. And so AP style kind of works in concert with the rules of grammar and punctuation. And AP style in particular kind of resolves the questions that people might have about, when you capitalize versus when you don't, when you use a colon versus a semicolon, that kind of thing. When it's for the communications professions, and I'm thinking of news, public relations or PR, marketing, advertising, all of that. Okay, and it makes it it gives consistency to our audience. So they're not distracted by, well, why is it capitalized here but not there? It keeps it nice and consistent for them. Okay. All right, we're only going to talk about some areas of the AP style book: titles, abbreviations, numbers, and dates. But of course, you have your style books. You can peruse through the other parts. And if you don't have one due to financial issues this semester, you will be able to use a cheat sheet, and you can look through that as well. That has some other topics. Okay, you want to use full names and titles the first time someone is mentioned. Okay, and the same for groups. Then the second time you can go with the abbreviation or the acronym if it's commonly known. I'll give you a quick example for a nonprofit group that I used to work for, an investigative group. It's called the Center for Public Integrity, but we never really went by CPI. So on second reference, we would just say the center. Okay, you want to abbreviate the business type at the end of a full business name. Here's a quick example. Toys R Us Inc. Okay, that Inc. is standing for incorporated, and we abbreviate it because that's not what's important about the title. Not, what's important is the name of the company, not the business type, whether it be limited or LLC or company or corporation. Okay, when do you capitalize a title? I'm sure you've been thinking about this as you've been filing your stories. Do I need to capitalize Associate Dean for Philosophy or something? Or Associate Dean for the College of Arts and Letters? Like, when is that capitalized or not? Basically, if it's before a name, it is capitalized. If the title comes after the name, it is lowercase. Also, if it's set off by commas, it is lowercase. Okay, so President Donald Trump, okay? Well, now it's former president, right? But the president goes in front, because it's in front of the name, it's capitalized. If you have a very long, meaningless title, then you can just shorten it, okay? So you can translate it. You don't have to use that full title. But it's not going to be capitalized, obviously, because that's not their formal title anymore. Okay, so here's a quick example. If you're quoting somebody who's the associate professor of biodiversity and human biology studies, you can just call them a biology professor, okay? And that's going to be lowercase. No, I don't expect you to memorize any of this. This is all stuff that the assessment is going to just see if you know how to look the stuff up in the style book or in the cheat sheet, okay? All the information is in there for you in the style book and in the cheat sheet. You just have to look it up. You have to be able to know how to look it up. So that's not what you're getting assessed on, that, not on memorizing, okay? Okay, so this is another long example, and I've seen this, I think this was actually in one of our UT stories. According to Executive Director for Communications and Public Affairs, Robert Lopez. Okay, think about for a second what might be a quicker way to say that title. It won't be a formal title anymore, it'll be lowercase, but what title might we give him that's not going to take up so much space? Okay, for anyone who thought of this, you can give yourself a little pat on the back there, a little round of applause. It's the best way to say this would actually be spokesperson, okay? Okay, and I think we did do this in a different story. This is from a different story where they said Robert Lopez, a spokesperson for Castellet. Much easier. You know, we're not trying to think about what's going to offend the source as much as we're going to think about what's best for the reader and for the audience. Okay, so you want to lowercase titles when there's no name with the title, like when you're just saying the president, okay? You're going to lowercase when that title comes after the name, as I mentioned before. So here in this case, instead of President Donald Trump, we're saying Trump, comma, the US president, right? And remember, I also said that you lowercase the title when it's set off from the name by commas, okay? In which case it'll also need an article. It'll need a the or an right? So here in this case, we say the country's president, Donald Trump, okay? And it's set off by commas. Even though the title is before his name, it's lowercase because of those commas. Finally, you want to lowercase any general or informal titles. If it's not the person's formal title, even if it's before their name, it's lowercase. So for instance, if somebody was quoting me and they said Professor Julie Patel, that is not my formal title. So that would be lowercase. It's a generic title, you know, somebody who's a professor. I mean, they do have to be a professor, but what specific type of professor they are isn't in that story. So then they just lowercase the professor. Same thing with writer Toni Morrison, actor Meryl Streep. Okay, so now another time when we capitalize are obviously proper nouns, okay? This is like the name of a person, the formal name of a person, the formal name of a group, the formal name of a city or of a county or a country. I think you guys know all this, but so it'd be Alameda County, capitalized, Orange County, capitalized, LA County, capitalized, Los Angeles County, sorry, capitalized. And then you lowercase if more than one proper noun shares that word. So for instance, if you're talking about, you know, Los Angeles and Orange counties, then that's not the formal name. You're saying the word counties instead of county. So then counties is lowercased. San Francisco and Alameda counties, okay? Okay, but Alameda is still a proper name, so that's why it's still capitalized, and San Francisco as well. Okay, do you know when numbers have to be spelled out instead of writing the numeral? Like instead of writing the number 1, you know, we would spell it out, O-N-E. When do we do that? When do we spell numbers out? Think about it for a second. Okay, so basically you spell out all numbers from 0 through 9, and then you use numerals for 10 and up, okay? Think about the logic of that. Why would that be? Why would they have us write the numerals? If it's 10 or higher, why would we write the numerals? Think about it for a few seconds. Okay, if you're thinking it's because it would take too long to spell out certain numbers that are above 10, you're right, okay? Even like 16, it's a lot of letters, right? So at that point, you're just using the numbers. However, this is like the basic rule. However, there are some exceptions. So what we're going to talk about now are the exceptions to this rule. Age is an exception. If you use somebody's age, even if it's under 10, remember the normal rule is you spell it out under 10, But in this case, age is an exception. So even if it's under 10, you're going to write the numeral. Another exception is percent. So even if you're just talking about 5%, you're going to write out the numeral. You're not going to spell it out, okay? Time is the same way. So if you say, the city council meeting is at 6 p.m., you're not going to spell out the word 6. Money is the same thing. So $5, even if that's under 10, obviously, but you're not going to spell out the word 5. You're going to write 5, numeral 5, and you're going to put a $sign in front of it. Dimensions. So if you're talking about the person is 6'2", then you're going to write the number 6, the numeral, dash, foot, F-O-O-T, dash, 2, the numeral, not spell it out, even though 6 and 2 are both under 10. And of course, if it's the first word in a sentence, think about why AP does not want you to use a numeral as the first word in a sentence. Think about that for a few seconds. Okay, so if you thought that it's because it just looks weird, then you're right, but also it can be confusing because then people might think there's a list coming. They may not understand why there's a number to start that sentence. So you spell it out, even if you're starting it with, 5 students did blah, blah, blah. If that's your first sentence, if that's your sentence and the first word is 5, you have to spell it out. In this case, it's an exception to that rule. Okay, finally, you want to abbreviate months when they're used in full dates, okay, with the date and the year on them. The only months that are not abbreviated are 5 months, and it's kind of easy because they're the shortest months, first of all, so it makes sense that they're not abbreviated, right? You can't really go from it's very hard to abbreviate a month like May, right? It's already so short. And the other thing that makes it easy is that all 5 of these months are in a row: March, April, May, June, and July. Okay, so those 5 months are not abbreviated. The other months are. And this rule of abbreviating is actually only when it's a full date. Okay. Now, the other thing with the date and the month and all that is you want to avoid ordinal numbers. That means first, the ST in first, ND in second, RD in third, RTH in fourth, TH in fifth, right? You don't want to write the TH and the ND and the ST and all that. You just want to write the numbers. So it's October 5th. See how I've written it? October 5, 1977, not October 5th. Okay. All right.